All right, this is a 2-minute warning. You have 2 minutes. We'll start at 10:45. 2 minutes.
You might not have it up yet.
Actually, you know what I did? Like to move around that. I flew Erin.
Okay, 10:45. If you could take your seats, that would be great. Hey, I got a place for you. It's in the closet right out there. We'll do that later today. Hey, before we kick it off with Chad, we have 2 special guests, a little impromptu. But first, give it up for Kathleen. She's got a special thing for us.
How many of you do the Christmas gift for your staff? Okay, fantastic. Well, 'tis the season. So if you need some creative ideas, please email me and I can send you some links of some new ideas. The second thing is just a shout out is we're doing something different. We're doing something called Gifty, Gifty, and that allows, folks kind of want to choose their gifts, especially if they've been on staff and they have 10 raincoats. So what this is you get to set up your own website for your staff. You decide how much those gifts are, and then they can go, you give them a link, and they can choose the gift that they want. If that matches what you'd like to do this year, again, just reach out and I will put you in touch with someone on our team that can help with that. So just want to let you know that's a fun new thing.
Thank you, Kathleen. Super helpful. All right. Hey, right before Chad and Erin, we have one more person, but I'm not announcing them. But give it up for whoever's about to come on stage.
Here to correct Matt Pogue, who was standing in for VP of Camping, Chris Hack. It is Emily Miner.
Not to correct Matt Pogue, but to provide some context to his numbers. His numbers are correct. That is a battle Christopher and I fight every single day. Not against each other. It is us against the world. But the numbers are correct. And like Chad said yesterday, there's often a story or context behind numbers. So I wanted to say a quick thing about the volunteer numbers, because I did get a lot of texts and questions. Some of our volunteer numbers, the overall number dropped. Here is why. We requested, or camps required, less spots. We dropped a session at Lone Hollow Ranch from 23 or 24 to 25. So that's a whole session's less worth of work crew and summer staff. So that's one factor. Some of you dropped weeks and you changed what you needed. The other thing is, and some of you may remember this, that when we got work crew applications in mid-March, we saw a huge wait list on work crew. We had more work crew than we had spots for, and many of your camps flipped summer staff spots to work crew spots. I think WFR, like you flipped retail. So it dropped the number of summer staff spots you needed and increased the number of work crew you needed. What I would say overall is that our percentage of spots filled grew. We filled, I think it's 93% of our work crew spots and 88% of our summer staff spots. So our occupancy grew, but the number of volunteers we required or requested from the field shrunk a little bit, to the same way of how you might take a camp week away, because its occupancy isn't really doing it for your calendar. It's the same idea. So I just wanted to say that so there's not a panic of our summer staff numbers aren't growing. It's just that they're being right-sized a little bit, but our summer staff occupancy and our work crew occupancy is growing. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Now Chad Green.
Give it up again for Emily. It's a great joy to get to follow her leadership every year at the camping business meeting. All right, everybody, this is year 3 of me. I've been saying this is like Back to the Future 3. We're going Western. It's not the movie any of you asked for, but somebody thought it was worth making. So we're here. We've added some new players. So Erin's going to come up in a little bit. Chad's going to say some things. Tex is going to say some things. It's going to be really exciting. Hey, so I've been learning that I need to repeat myself a lot. They say like it takes 7 times for you to say something or communicate something for it to land. And I don't like repeating myself. You can ask any of my friends or my children. They know that. And so, but I have become committed to this space of what is the mission of facility management and landscape. And I've also been told to say, we don't say sites and facilities anymore. So I'm formally asking, we say facility management and landscape. Sites is nothing that my department does anymore. Maybe construction services work with sites, but you can talk to Chris Marshall about that. All right, we maintain and enhance spaces for a distraction-free encounter with Jesus. The Facility Advisory Board gathered in August, and we talked about the ministry of facility management and landscape, and we landed on this. Nothing new, but the words that we put to it. We're serving the mission of Young Life through stewardship of people and place. It's a great gift. Nothing I'm really going to talk about today is new. There might be a new system, but we've been doing this since the first day we owned a Young Life camp. The thing that's hopefully different about maybe from today moving forward is, Chad Martin, the other little Chad, said that we, not supposed to use sports analogies, but kind of what we've been doing in the facility game and the landscape game for the last little bit is we've been using 22 playbooks to try to win a Super Bowl. And we want to move to having one playbook. We don't believe that the uniqueness of every operation is something to minimize. Actually, I believe it's something to maximize. And the uniqueness of the spaces, the facilities, the infrastructure, define and shape the realities in which each one of you camp managers and you coordinators lead. And that matters. But how we get to a way of doing that well with the size and scope that we have is we have to move into one playbook that we can all understand and trust. And that's hopefully what we're going to be moving into in these next few months, maybe 18 months, if you will. A verse that's kind of stuck out to me lately that I've shared in a few different spaces in Proverbs, a lot of great Proverbs, one of my favorite books of the Bible. Know the state of your flocks and put your heart into caring for your herds, for riches don't last forever, and the crown might not be passed to the next generation. I believe we do that. I believe that we do that really, really well. And for those of us that were on a call together this summer on the facility condition assessment, you heard that 95% of our assets conditions were defined as good to great. I do believe we're doing that. I believe what's hard is if you sit at a camping services level, a coordinator level, Chad and Newt level, it's hard to get your arms around that truth by the way we operate currently. And so we're hoping to do that differently and do that well. When I moved, I'm going to talk about being on field staff a few different times, and hopefully I won't cry, but I seem to cry on these things, but this might be the last time I ever get to do this. So I always find, like, what do I want to say to you if this were the last time? And so you never know. Well, I'm not dying. I don't think. Lord? There's only like my immediate family only knows about this. My good friends, my parents, they don't. So I have to share something with y'all that is really personal, and I thought it was worth sharing. When I moved into camping services, I got asked to lean into documentation. So Brian Spindor asked me to read all of our documentation. Two things I take out of that is, man, we did not keep a lot of that up to date, and those that did were Mark Poindexter and Kathleen Silvius. Their departments operated on up-to-date, healthy documentation, and it's worth celebrating. That was true 8 years ago, and I think it's still true for Chris and Kathleen today. But we know documentation is important, and I'm not going to drop the mic by just saying, God's word was so important. He decided to write it down, but something that matters to me. So I have this bag in my closet, and it's a bag full of stuff that matters a lot to me, and it's all documentation. I've got a note. It's hard to see, but Chris Baldwin's wrote me a note. Reese made me a birthday card. My mom. I, like Tex, turned 40, and somebody wanted to document their joy of that. I have those cards that you all write. I don't know if you think that matters, but I keep those. So when we do things in life, it really does matter that we write it down, and we all know that. There's science to when you write things down in a book or on your notepad or your iPad or whatever cool that you remember it differently. We know that to be true. The story I like to tell is the Facility Advisory Board met for the first time a few years ago at the Service Center. It also coincided with I think it was Steve Thompson's last week in the office. And he was on the floor in a meeting, and he walked by, and we're in a breakout group. I don't know, I can't remember if Peter was in that group with me or not, but I slid open the door, and I go, hey, Steve, when you were at Frontier, did your facility teams or your maintenance team, they like to write things down? And again, Steve, he was always on the move. He just goes, no, we always had too many things to do. And then he just kept on going. And that's been true of us. But I think that we've got to adjust that behavior, and we've got to adjust that perspective. That what's true about inspecting my flock, is not just my personal family, it's also my heart, it's my soul. And how I do that is I go back to that bag every now and again and look at the people that said things to me, and I got to be reminded about how God sees me. And in the same way, I think we got to look at the documentation of the way we maintain our spaces and steward the people in the place and go, how are we doing? How did we? Chad Martin identified in 5 years he wants to look back at people who asked to come. I think it's valuable. All right, this isn't new. This is a journey we've been on together, right? Back to the Future 3. So in 2022, we started with the bucket of what do we have? Our asset inventory. We weren't all using the link in the same way. We still aren't today, and that's okay. No one was judging that, and no one was asking you to. But what we decided is we need to get our arms around what it is we do have. How are we doing on that? We're doing pretty good. In the last year, we decided, all right, here's the list of what we have, and we're going to ask all of you to define condition. So where is it on its life or journey? And we're going to look at that. This is when I'm going to ask Chad Seaver to stand up. He stood up impromptu last year and said something to us all, and so I wanted to give him an opportunity to join me again, and if he had anything to say to the room on that work that we did.
Well, I would say a year ago, I gave you all a little charge at the end of our time as to why we needed to do that. And I said yesterday that it ended up on a slide with the top 180 donors in the mission a month ago. No number behind it yet, but it's been said out loud that that's a need for the camping department. So one, thank you for going and doing it. I know it was a lot of work. And the information is amazing. We're not sure what to do with it all yet, but the information is amazing. The next thing I would say is, as what Chad and Erin are going to continue to share, is the next step is we got to go use these amazing new tools that are going to tell us more about the data and what our need is. So, credit to Matt Pogue, who rolled out the link a long time ago. And it was a different situation. What Chad and Erin so that we can better tell our donors and the rest of the mission why we need more funding to support these amazing places that we're stewarding. So keep doing the effort to provide leadership to your teams moving forward.
Thanks, Chad. It was great. Most of us all got on a call. We talked about it. We looked at it. A lot of great questions. And I would even say there's some valid skepticism, not cynicism. And just so you know, you should look up those two words. They're very different. Skepticism on the validity of the data, how we'd acquired it. And what I would say to this room together is we're getting better at this. It's fair to question it because we've just been doing this differently as a group for the last 15 years. We're asking us to do it together in a very similar way moving forward so that I believe we can trust the information more and more accurately. So moving on from today forward, it's actually a little bit before today, but you've been experiencing some change. We really are talking about culture within the facility management and landscape department and the systems shifts. It's not just a new tool. And if you were to ask Emily, at Zorba's on a Tuesday night, maybe with a couple of beers, she might tell you, like, Workday wasn't just about where you click and how. It was a culture shift in how we hire people, how we welcome people, how we say goodbye well, like how we identify PTO. It's not just the clicking in the system. It's using the system and leading our people in healthy supervision in a new, better way. And that's what we're hoping to do, not with MaintainX or the Schneider CAP tool, but it's how we ask our people to lead their people. All right, so the facility advisor board, I use that a lot. I just want to remind this room who that is. Currently on this list, there's 13 names. 7 of those people are in this room. It's a significant group of leadership in camping. And if they're here and you want to ask them a question, they're more than happy to answer it. I bought them a jacket so they would answer questions for you so I wouldn't have to. But that group of people gathers 4 times a year. 3 on Zoom, really long Zoom calls, it's the worst. But together, we got hosted at WFR. It was a great time. Peter Grubb has rolled off, and it's great to announce that John Gastineau is going to take Peter's Grubb and represent the Northwest on that team. And they've been carrying a lot of things. And the things that we carried, the first one was, what is the ministry? We really wanted to ground and remind ourselves of what is the ministry of our departments before we ever talk about rhythms, tasks, outcomes. Who do we say we are and why we show up every day? And so that's why I wanted to show that to you. That group affirmed that and shaped those words. And then they landed on this thing I'm about to show you. I said these are the things I say as like we die on the hill of. I would just say that we expect. So to this room, we don't have to die on a hill. I expect you to lead towards these places. If you do or you don't, that's up to you, but I think that's the expectation that's healthy. One, that daily, that technicians would write down what they do. Weekly, we're walking through the buildings. The facility teams are. So if I need to talk with Matt Canara about how we open and close for midweek or weekend guest groups, we're willing to have that conversation. The facility advisor board wants the facilities teams to be walking through the buildings weekly. And just as a side note, our legal executive also asked for that as well in a post-summer meeting we were just in. And it was fun to tell him that the facility advisor board already decided that we were in on that. We don't know quite know how to do that yet. And I would say that we're glad to learn, but that's the movement forward. Monthly, none of this stuff should be super new, but one-on-one meetings between supervisors and direct reports. This one came up, this one was actually new. Critical systems walkthrough. The definition of a critical system is if we need it to operate, it runs. Unfortunately, Timberwolf experienced a transformer go out. They could tell you the value of a critical systems review and inspection and the impact on a weekend operation. And then the last one on the monthly is that we're asking facility managers to review the data. This one I just think is funny, and I'm about to be done, I promise. We keep talking about swinging hammers and sitting in front of laptops or computers. I'm not asking people not to swing hammers. I don't know why we don't use nail guns, but if we're going to use hammers, I think that's a great tool to use. I'm asking people that steward anywhere between $4 and $9 million a year to take it seriously, and maybe you have to shut the door of your office and be strategic and plan out how you're going to schedule your people, how you're going to execute one-on-ones, how you're going to use the words that are going to be repeated day in and day out, even to guest groups on how to report DIN, to take the time necessary to do that. I think it's worth that time. Now, I also believe the better you are at doing that, that means you can empower you to go do more hammer swinging. If you're really good at planning, you can go swing a lot of hammers. The last one, we're joining in Chad Sievert's goal of annual evaluations. I think that's worthwhile. All right. Promise I'm going to try to get through this. You're going to get access to these slides. I did that on purpose because there's a lot of words, and I don't want to have to talk about all of them. I wanted you to have them as resources, and I wanted you to experience Erin's leadership. And so the thing that's going to be the big, like, blockbuster takeaway that I continue to hear a lot about is, wait, we're completing work orders for everything? And the answer is maybe on a 40-hour work week, I expect to see 32 hours to 36 hours documented for everyone that works in the facility department. And I don't think it's too much to ask for someone to say what they did. Now, you may disagree with me, and that's okay. But how does that work? Well, do I need a work order to then go help guest services if they need? No, you don't need a work order. You just write it down at the end of the day. That's the second one. Just what did you do that day? The system is pretty slick. It makes it pretty easy to do. And then as you walk down this, it becomes more and more leadership focused. And then at the end, the one thing I would say from my seat is that we're asking that that's done in Maintain X. That's not done in a side Google sheet. It's not done in a cool system you bought on your own. We're actually asking us to work together on this in the same place. Here, there's 3. We're framing the shift. There's some language that I want you guys, I think is worthwhile to share. You don't have to use it. Clarity isn't busy work. It's how we serve the mission. Every work order tells the truth about what is actually happening at this camp. Those are things that can be said. Clarity of work orders. Write work orders for the next person. The number, and you all know this, there's someone at your camp that has more camp information in their head than you do in any system, and you want it out of their head. Let's ask them to care for the next staff. And the last one, I promise. Preventative maintenance. We're going to be moving. We're very reactive. I think some of it, John Gassino and we're actually leg wrestling over this, but I'd like to see us move to 90% preventative maintenance. He laughs at me when I say those things, and I appreciate the laughter. He's smarter than me, so it must mean I'm wrong. But we have got to move from our reactive maintenance posture today to preventative. It saves us money. We get to plan differently. Our people, like if you live in this is the one that gets me, that I get excited about. If you live in a preventative maintenance space, when technicians show up at work, they know what's happening that day. They don't show up wondering what emergency do I have to be ready for. They've got the list of things they're going to go do. And hopefully they've been trained in how to do them. All right. The last thing about being on field staff, I didn't know, when I was leaving field staff to come to camping services, that I was going to be in a department of one for a long time. And I really... that was hard. But I really enjoyed the role and what I got to do. But I missed being able to be with, I had 4 or 5 staff in the area. I had, 50, 70 leaders, just depending on the year. You really get to be a part of a team, which I am a part of in camping service. We got to lead one. And so I got to lead with Dana for a hot second during COVID. That was, but recently we've been able to bring Erin and Jeremy on board to help support the work that we're doing. And, I would tell you, like everyone in this room, Erin is unbelievably gifted and talented, and I hope you do, like everyone in this room, when you start to ask her about who the Lord is in her life, and if you get to be someone that she prays over, the Fab can agree, it is a gift. And so with that, I bring up Erin Parsons.
Thank you. I just want to say thanks to this room for allowing me to help lead in this software rollout. I know you all didn't pick me and you're stuck with me, but thank you anyways. I'm grateful, and I'm learning a ton, not only about my role, but also just so much about who I am, and so I'm really grateful for the process. And so really quick, just to highlight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the communication and resources available to you, and then also a little bit of you all received an email about it, but we're just going to briefly talk about non-facility management and landscape departments transitioning into or not into the tool. And then we'll do a little look at the Maintain X reporting that is available. And then lastly, the Schneider Electric CAP tool that you all will have availability to. And so here you can see at the top is a quick, brief overview of what this process will look like within your division. The first thing that will happen is you will receive an email from me saying, hey, you're about to kick off. Here's what to expect. And then that enters into a 3-week pre-implementation process. And what I would ask for you all in that window is to schedule time with your facility manager and landscape superintendent to check in with them about how they're feeling about the transition, how their teams might be feeling about that transition, and then also they will receive their data that they spent a lot of work either gathering in the SCA process or in the link, or however they did that over the last many years. They will receive that from us in an MX workbook that will have it all laid out for them. And so check in with them, make sure they're looking at that. I will also be doing the same thing. There will be a lot of communication happening, so when in doubt, just don't worry. It will be happening. We'll be talking about it. And so I'm checking in with them as well about it. But mostly we want to highlight that we do realize there are some gaps still, even with all the hard work that has been done over the last 2 years. And so if your facility manager or landscape superintendent comes up and says, hey, I think we're missing something, point them in my direction. I'm happy to help get that leveled out for them. And so then after that process, there will be, during the implementation phase, there will be meetings with the Maintain X team weekly, and we would love for you all to attend. You'll get a look at the tool. You will see what your facility manager and landscape superintendent are seeing and understand how to lead them in this process better. So you are welcome to all of those. You will receive those invitations. And then lastly, when it's all done, Chad and I will schedule meetings with you all and your facility manager and landscape superintendent to all get on a Zoom together, talk through how the go live has gone, maybe how it's settling at your camps, any questions you might have, and we'll also look at reporting at that time. And then lastly, resources are available. We have a lot on Camping in the Cloud. So if you're like, I don't even remember when my division is supposed to be implementing, go to Camping in the Cloud. You can find everything there. The MX toolkit has everything there that you might need. And if you have more questions, Chad and I are here to answer those. So quickly, you received an email about this, but a big piece of moving into Maintain X is it is for facility management. And so a lot of you might say, well, other departments have had an opportunity in the link to bring in maybe system and process reminders, like I use the example of update the summer staff manuals before summer, the reminder that comes in as a PM in the link. Those types of things will not come over to Maintain X because we are using it for facility management. But there are things from other departments that do impact facility health, like asset health or physical health of the spaces. And so we want to make sure we capture those things. And so I would encourage you all to check in with your department heads and see if they've used the link to do those types of things. And if so, I am happy to pull a report for them to look at those PMs. But we also would love for them to check in with their facility managers to see how or if they need to bring anything over to it. Does that make sense? Great. So we would love for you all to help support in that of just encouraging the departments to meet with your facility managers and landscape superintendents to see how they can bring that over. And we do have access to the link through December of 2026. So if you're like, oh my gosh, we need to do this all really fast, we have access to it. And then even after that, we will be archiving all of the data. So Chris DeVore and his team will be able to help access any of that we need. Great. So here's a quick glimpse of reporting within Maintain X. There's a lot that is available just out of the box. And so you'll see way more than just these things when you go to the reporting module in Maintain X. But we felt, as Chad laid out what he just talked about with all of the process expectations, that these three highlight some great reports to be focused on. And so they'll be added to a custom dashboard for you all. And you see over here labor utilization, and that touches on that 80 to 90% of what Chad is talking about. We want this number to be as close to 80, 90% as possible. We also have talked about this not only as like, yes, it's a stat and that's great, but it's also, Chad has talked about it as being like a prayer list. You can click into these things and you can see the work that each of these people are doing. And it's a really great opportunity to pray for your teams and pray for the work that is being done so that ministry can happen in your spaces, which is a really beautiful thing. And then you also see a work orders by type report up there, and that total preventative ratio is what we're aiming to be 80, 90%, up there. And so we know that this is a crawl, walk, run process. Those are the words that MaintainX uses, that right off the bat, that number isn't going to be 80, 90%. We'll build PMs into this process. It will happen. Like, I'm so excited to see what these could look like 12 months down the road. And so if you're like, oh my gosh, we need to make this happen immediately, don't worry. We don't have that expectation. And then lastly, on the bottom, you see a time versus cost report, and that shows in every work order, your techs have the ability they will track their time in the work order, but then they also will add parts and the cost of the parts to the work order. And that's how that's tracked there. And the reason why that is so important is we talked about, as Chad mentioned, where we are going with this and maybe what would be the most helpful or where you all will spend most of your time is in the Schneider tool that is coming. And so this is the capital asset planning tool that Schneider is integrating with MaintainX. So when work orders are completed in MaintainX, that information will then go into Schneider and it will create a capital asset plan for us. And that's a little bit of like, what do we do with the data that we've been collecting? This helps a ton put some arms around it. And so you'll be able to see a 40-year look at your camp and know what's been deferred, what is coming up, what are big years of spend that are coming. And all of the data that goes into those work orders that we just talked about in those reports feeds this and it makes this better and better. And so the better work we do in MaintainX, the better this plan becomes. And so it's pretty industry standard to understand that for every year you delay, it's a 3% increase in cost. They talk about like for every $1 not spent, it costs $4 down the road. And so we understand what deferring maintenance means. We understand that in this room for sure. And so this tool really gives us an ability to see that, and we think it'll drastically change the way that we do strategic planning to be able to see that many years out. And so there are some camps that have been in this tool, so Rockbridge and Lost Canyon. And so if you have any questions, ask Jimmy or ask Mark. No? Don't ask Jimmy anything, just kidding. But yeah, so happy and excited to be moving in this direction. And so before I move into it, we'll have some time for questions. Washington Family Ranch was the first camp into MaintainX, and so we wanted to give techs an opportunity of what has been like to be in there. Oh, hold on, Chad's coming. He's getting another mic. Give it up for techs.
Hey, everyone. Hey, two thoughts. One, one's a encouragement and one's maybe an opportunity. When I think about those two words, and I think about the rollout that we've been doing for the last several weeks, they kind of fall into two different groups. Overall, MaintainX is amazing. Like, it really is. I'm not here just blowing smoke. Like, I'm trying to be like your peer to say, hey, it's going to be good. But there's two things that have stood out to me. One, I want to share, we recently rolled it out to the entire staff team. So for a while, it was just the maintenance team. living in it, the facilities and landscape team living in it. But then we recently rolled it out to our staff, and we were talking about it with our staff about like, hey, how's that going? Our housekeeping supervisor, our food service manager have been in it, putting work orders in. And we asked like, hey, how was it doing it for the first time? And our housekeeping supervisor said, the question was, how was it getting it started? How was the training? Did you have what you needed? Housekeeping supervisor said, yeah, I skipped the training. I grew up on apps. Yeah. So as an encouragement, our housekeeping supervisor didn't even have to go through the MaintainX training to be able to submit work orders for the facilities team because it is that intuitive. It's so slick. So an encouragement, real hopeful. Opportunity. As it rolled out, there was several folks on our facilities and landscape team that had a pause because they were struggling with the why and the internal wrestling of, do you not trust me? Because when you talk about documenting hours, it can quickly go to suspicion instead of trust. And so Chad and Erin have called out all of the great things that are going to come down the road from the data that gets put in. But you also have an opportunity, I believe, to come alongside your facilities managers and your landscape supervisors to help them lead their teams through understanding this isn't because we don't trust you. We're not asking you to document your hours because we think you're wasting time. But we need to know how we're spending hours so that when we hear conversations of like, we don't have enough time to get everything done, or when we're looking to see why is the state of this building the way it is, oh, it's because we've only spent an hour. It's only as helpful as the information we have. And so helping them connect that it's not a gap of trust, but it's actually a deep trust that we believe, and we want to have the documentation to support what they're saying of what they need to do their job well. So just 2 opportunities. It's been awesome. There's been some hiccups. It's been a journey, but I'm super hopeful for what's going to come from the intentionality of this tool for both the entire camp staff in its ease of use and function, and the organization and process and workflow that it's going to offer to our facilities and landscaping teams to have this tool. So just a couple thoughts. One last thing I'd add, John Gastineau, who is currently sitting in a dual role of operations manager and facilities manager, is here with us. So he's living in it way more than I am. So if you have any questions, feel free to grab him in the next 12, 24 hours and ask him any specific questions you have as well. Thanks.
All right. If you got questions, you got thoughts, we're open to all of that.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm curious on the, in our current verbiage, DIN, I can understand how some of those things slide into the PM, or if somebody's finding them before someone reports them. But talk more about how, like, a hole in the wall kind of thing. Is a walkthrough, would that become, because that's a preventative task, does that work order go in the PM or reactive side?
Right. Great question. And this is probably where John laughs at me because he thinks I don't understand about the holes in the drywall. But and I don't, to be fair, on some level. But yes, moving to a space of, instead of waiting on guests to identify light bulbs being out, and light bulbs will go out, if you did your building walkthrough on a Tuesday at 3, there's a light bulb that'll definitely go out at Tuesday at 3:43, but that we are more proactive in that, and that PM of that building walkthrough would help hopefully mitigate a current percentage of what we count as reactive. And I didn't say this, and I will now say it. Erin brought it up. Like, we're hoping that we do take a year, maybe a little bit longer. We're hoping that we do learn together. Again, if you know me, you know that I think I know everything. So when I say this, I hope it lands really, really well. I don't know. I don't show up here as if I have all the answers. If anything, Eric's leadership in my life, the facility advisory board, Erin have taught me, you know what? We're on a journey together. And if more than anything, what I care about is that we're doing this together. If one of you or a group of you want to do something different, I will sick your supervisor or their supervisor on you, because that's more important to me, because I can't support your teams well if I don't understand. And so if someone doesn't like something, there's resistance. We did have issues with data at WFR, and we learned that actually we just had to make a phone call and it got fixed. So thank you for bringing that. But we don't have all the answers to how all these things are going to get played out. And we do hope that we have a runway. And we really want to do that well. And I think for some of you getting in the fall, you're getting a head start. We did identify that February 14th, not only the day of Valentine, but 2 weeks before March 1st is we want to have everyone in before project season, because then we've lost the department. We know that. And so I hope you hear that we're trying to get this in an appropriate time in the calendar year, whether you are fully loaded during that time, or you're hibernated, or you have an off season, that this window is to get you on board to be ready for spring and summer. Great question, Marshall. What other questions? Any thoughts?
Yeah, Chad, on the report, the total cost, does that include labor?
No, out of the gate, it could. The answer is it can. We believe the culture of Young Life Camping is to reveal an hourly rate by person. Maintain X says you can pick one number for everybody. I don't find that to be helpful, nor do I find it to be helpful, like for Scott, to have his technicians see other technicians' hourly rate. And so we've talked about that, like we can run numbers. Thank God for Levi. We can do things in the background to be able to put, and why would we? What I care, like some things that have come up since I've been in this role: wastewater, domestic water. How much time, and HR is working with us on job titles and maybe some new roles, like how much time and dollars are we spending on regulatory environments that we are paying for in-house? Maybe we could do out-of-house. What's the real cost benefit there for us that we can have just new information? But great question. No, it will be just parts costs. And we will get better with that, is what I would say.
What we have access to.
Yes.
Chad, you use this as an example, but could you say more of the critical systems, like the monthly piece of that? What are you envisioning with that being?
Yeah, one just got brought up yesterday, so we were all a part of an outage. So I think Russell Belinsky is the PC admin at Windy Gap. All the systems that are crucial for the gate to open at Windy Gap, for the internet to run, the HVAC. I feel like our lights are all on the internet type things. The Internet of Things is what they say. I think HVAC systems, usually especially in the winter. I can tell that Castaway's AC is working. I'm cold everywhere. I was definitely cold about 20 minutes ago, Nick. Good job. Water, infrastructure.
Sorry, actual process of that. What is the check, are we just making sure they all work each month?
Yes, and each piece of equipment has like a manual that comes with PMs for ways to take care of it. So if you think about your car, it'll have in the back of the manual, like at 5,000 miles, do this. Every piece of equipment comes with that from the manufacturer, which, by the way, if you have that manual, you can use that and put it in the AI feature of the tool, and it will build out your PMs for you. It's pretty slick, to use Texas words. Great question, though. And I would say the uniqueness of every operation, that's going to be a little different. And if I could use Timberwolf, that transformer we knew was getting close. Like we knew it post it going out, right? How could we have been 18, 24 months ahead of that in your planning on that CAP tool?
Yeah, I think that's what made me like the scaling of that monthly. I don't know how we would have done it with transformers, but the other examples make a ton of sense. Yeah.
Great question.
Tex spoke briefly about just kind of the impact in the community. I'm curious about how the day-to-day works and how, do our maintenance team no longer need radios because they're not getting called to do things because we have to submit our work order?
Maybe, I'll answer and tell me if I'm thinking order of operations is what I'm hearing. I would, to simplify it, at the end of the day, take 30 minutes and fill out your work orders. And if, I've heard at some camps, the facility teams helps unload the food truck in the dining hall. We don't require the food service manager to submit a service request and a work order for them to give permission to their peer to then deploy their staff. That feels backwards to me. Yeah, we can help you. And then it's like, you know what? The other thing in that 80 to 90, remember, in a 40-hour work week, that's 8 to 4 hours that aren't captured. You don't have to fill out that work order. But we find that in that food truck, when I told Sig that, he was like, I want to know more. And I'm like, yeah. Right, don't we all? Because I think a camp manager, from our seat, the facility team and the landscape teams are usually the largest staff teams of most camps, have the largest budget. I would want to know how many hours am I paying for another department to receive help on the side. That wasn't a coordinated turnover or an intentional decision, because I think that we have to allocate funds or time differently to make sure things are happening. Or just an awareness to know that my facility manager is helping this other department. I hope they had these other things going. I can see those work orders aren't getting time. And so we can have a conversation. It's a question I can ask.
So is it the expectation that the last 30 minutes, your facilities people would say, oh, helped with unloading the truck for 30 minutes? Like they're putting that down?
Yep. And it's really easy. And we could even build work orders that you can just have repeat that can then be used.
Like, oh, because that Bible study for 2 hours.
Right. Or team meeting or, yeah.
I'd love to hear from Jimmy or Benson or Mark how they've leveraged the Schneider information.
Oh, it's changed perspective. Yeah, it's really allowed us to see the detail of what really needs to happen. I mean, that's why our combi ovens were on there, because we just lived through and Dave Holmes comes in and fixes them every day. But it was like, whoa, it's really opened up our eyes and really brought perspective to us. Significant.
And it has elevated our conversations, mine and Jimmy, because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, that doesn't feel significant to me.
Right.
Until I see a pretty objective in black and white, or in this case, red, blinking thing in my face that says, no, this is important. This needs to be elevated.
Because Schneider identified, oh, this piece of equipment is 5 years past
That's
its
right.
expected lifespan, and you're spending money on it.
That's right.
Yeah, another part of that, and again, the power of the integration, it's called maintenance ratio in CAP, or the Schneider tool. We can just call it CAP. And if you want to just call maintain X MX, it's easy. We're getting rid of sites, so I want to give you all something else. The maintenance ratio is the dollars you spent against that asset against the replacement costs. So you'll know if you're over 50% of the replacement costs. So, we take pride, and we know them. And thank God for the ministry of serving the mission of Young Life to steward people in place. They love to make something last and stay alive for a long time, the technicians. Some of them are so gifted at it. Sometimes we spent 3 times the cost of replacing something that would have been more efficient or lasted longer now, just because we can. And it's not always a good decision. And now we'll be able to at least have the information to make that decision differently. Coupled with deferred is, so I think this is helpful, the definition of what deferred maintenance in that system means, and I think we will move there together, it is when the manufacturer recommends replacement. So think about roofs, like roof shingles. If it's a 20-year roof shingle, that in 20 years it would ask for it to be replaced. And if you waited 21 years, now you're 1 year in deferment. Does that make sense? The other beautiful thing about Schneider, we've been in you all really should. It's to the heart of who he is and what we all know, his passion, which is deep and sometimes loud. Mark Booth is how we got into that relationship and what they're doing at Las Canyon. And we have, one of the great things they bring to the table is consultation. And so Mike Kane at Rockbridge, they had, I think it was a boiler. There was something in a shed, and it failed. And so he went to Schneider, and they have engineers that work with that piece of equipment. Sorry, it's escaping me. And then Schneider was able to identify 3 vendors regionally near Mike that he could call that were good installers as well as vendors. And so we're like Signorini and I are giddy. This is like camping services nerd. We're giddy about the idea of that expertise. And Schneider is a global company. Like it's a French company it's a global conglomerate. Remind me the electrical boxes. Square D, thank you. They manufacture those. So the amount of information and support they have at their fingertips is significant. And Jess, the guy who is our guy, his favorite week of the year is he leads worship for a middle school discipleship camp. And that's just who's on our team through this vendor. He may not always be there, but he loves what we do. And he wants to deploy all those resources. And so Mike Kane is represented. Not only is it great to see, but they're also a partner. And then they had a brownout, and having access to all the make, model, serial numbers of the equipment, they were able to submit a claim through the insurance really quickly and then get payment and replace really fast. When you don't have your assets, it takes a little bit longer to do that. These are great. We have like 12 more minutes if you want. And they're not perfect, but we are way better than we are even today. We will be in just 12 months because of both of the partnerships that we have. Since we're almost done, I will speak to the impact of the team. It's something, it's easy for me to get up here and say, do this or expect that. It's come out maybe I'll say two things. Number one, I ran like a landscape company in high school and college. And then when I worked in camping, I worked with this really tall man in landscape at Sharp Top and with Jeremy Burchett a little over 20 years ago. I have only thought about the landscape department through this lens, or it's been at the forefront of my mind. And so I find that department may need even more help than the facilities, because writing down what they do has never really been a part of our rhythm. What is a location for them? So there's a lower field at Sharp Top by the office. Whenever I had been around long enough, somehow I got to the good graces of finally getting to use the mower. It would take me an hour to mow it. And so the ability for Brian at the time to know, oh, Chad's going to do that on Tuesday, it's going to take an hour, for him to be able to plan my time that way would have been a gift, I believe, for him back in those days, as well as the PMs on that John Deere mower. But I think I would call that out. Jeremy's going to do a good job in helping us with that, but he needs your help as well. They may need different kind of support. And then all of my words come out of deep and great trust out of your leadership. Each one of you individually, collectively. I said this to the CLT. I never in a million years would ever assume that you have once led out of fear. And so I feel really confident that you can walk alongside your teams and say, I'm not leading out of fear for you now. This is only to put a spotlight and to acknowledge the great work that this group of people do. I'm pretty sure everyone else will be jealous, because we're going to be able to see in a new way this group of camp staff and what they do, and be able to support with resource time or money or whatever in a new way, so that we can continue to create distraction-free spaces for our guests to experience Jesus. All right, thank you very much.
Hey, Chad, I have a personal question. Sorry. How do we track, you mentioned landscape, how will we track volunteers doing tasks? Is that whoever supervises them? Copy that. Erin?
Great. We're learning a lot, and we will have answers for you.
Perfect.
We have lots of ideas
That is coming up soon.
Great. Because Chuck Hornung is a volunteer, and he does all of our mowing. And if we didn't have that, we couldn't track that well. Hey, we're ahead of schedule. You get an extra break here. We're going to have 15 minutes, but now we're going to be in the dining hall in 23 minutes, and I will be praying at noon. We'll see you in the dining hall at noon for lunch. See you there.